Hi, welcome to this afternoon's coaching session from the Job Search Accelerator Program. I'm Simon Ward. I'm hoping that you're seeing and hearing this. This is the first time we've tried to use Zoom in conjunction with Facebook Live. So I'm going to carry on as if you're all there and if you're all hearing it. Hopefully you are. I've seen a couple of colleagues in this space having some problems with some Facebook Lives recently. So I apologize if this drops in or out or whatever, but I think it's best just to battle on. So when I first put up the syllabus for this week, I got a few members from the Job Search Accelerator program and from the I Got Hired community just questioning whether we should be doing a session on resilience when only 2 weeks ago we did a session on mental health. And absolutely, I understand how that may be. It's an absolutely fair challenge. But I think things have happened in the UK in recent days that make resilience in the job hunt a very valid topic to talk about. We're about, for those of you who are out of the UK, may not be aware of it, but on Thursday, we move into our second national lockdown. And that's going to have an impact on not just the jobs market, and it's going to add some challenges to many people in many industries, but it's also going to have an impact on those who are already in train, already in process, who are already running their job hunt. And I've seen a lot on the internet today espousing exactly what is going to happen over the next 4 weeks and what it's going to be like. I'm not sure if we know, to be honest. I have my own view, but it's no more than that. I'm not in a position where I can lecture from a position of strength that this is exactly what the next 4 weeks is going to be like. But my concern, when I started thinking about this at the latter part of last week, is that I think that we may be moving to an environment where current organizations or organizations that are currently active in hiring may become a little bit more conservative. There's already been cross messages as to whether this is a 4-week lockdown. Boris Johnson promises it's a month. Michael Gove has come out and said it could go well beyond that month. So there's a lot of uncertainty around, and companies like investors just don't like uncertainty. So I'm expecting some organizations to become more conservative. I think there is a possibility that opportunities that would have gone into the market now won't. But my greater concern is how they're going to manage the opportunities that are already in train. So they've already begun to harvest candidates. People have already submitted their CVs, potentially are already in the interview process, or even worse, have received an offer or the indication that an offer is on the way. And there is a fear, I certainly hold, that we may find that processes are postponed, if not cancelled, that interviews are cancelled, that offers are withdrawn, while employers in the UK try to get their head around exactly what this lockdown and maybe an extended lockdown means for their business. And that is really, really tough to take. This market is hard enough to be a job hunter in at any time. But if you have fought through recent weeks or months and got yourself to a position where you are in the advanced stages of a process and that process collapses on you, it's going to be really hard to take. And that's why I wanted to talk about resilience. I wanted to talk about the ability to cope with what is thrown at you and the ability to get up and go again. And it's so fundamental. It's so important. Everything that we teach in I Got Hired and the Job Search Accelerator program and Free for a Million, none of it matters. None of it counts if, as a job hunter, you aren't able to maintain focus, maintain commitment, operational activity, that you are able to believe in yourself as a candidate. Because if you don't believe in yourself as a candidate, how the hell are you going to make anyone else believe in you as a candidate? So as things get tougher and as we get those sort of slings and arrows of outrageous fortune that we just think we've got it right, and then we get another punch in the solar plexus, I wanted to talk about being conscious that this is a risk. And as with all things, you are much more likely to be able to deal with the challenges you face if you're conscious that those challenges may well come. And I don't want to create an environment where people are going to bed tonight terrified that their job offer is going to be withdrawn, or an interview that they've had arranged is going to be cancelled. But I think we should be aware that it is a possibility. We don't know what these employers are going to do. And I thought it may be helpful to walk through a couple of frameworks that we use in I Got Hired and we use in the Job Search Accelerator program to try to embed some behaviors, embed some processes into your daily life, into your job hunt, that will help build resilience. And this model is not mine. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not going to claim that any of this thinking is mine. Certainly the resilience model comes from the American Society of Psychologists, a book that was published probably 10, 12 years ago, The Road to Resilience, which I have used and questioned and challenged and slightly adapted for my own personal use at times when things have been tough for me, and we'll walk through that. And then we have the mental health 5E model, which is very practical, very based on what you can actually do on a day-to-day basis. So now I'm going to try to make this technology work. Let's see if I can share my screen. That would be a great start. And then we can just talk through this model that, as I say, that largely I've pinched from the Road to Resilience. And there are, in the Road to Resilience, there are fundamentally 10 elements of behaviors and consciousness as much as anything else that helps you embed that resilience. A couple of them for me, as you can see, I've highlighted in red here because they didn't work for me. For me personally, they seemed a little bit fluffy. And I kind of almost rejected them out of hand when I first read the book. But equally, I felt that from a job hunting perspective, there were some things that were missing. So I've added a couple of bits and pieces to it. So let's just talk through these 12. And I don't expect all 12 or all 10 to be exactly what you need. Every one of us is an individual. So we're all going to take what we think works and we're going to leave what doesn't. And that's exactly how it should be. So the first box, connect, is really important, and we revisit in the 5E models, but it is about making connections and retaining and maintaining those connections. And they could be as simple as with your immediate family or your extended family. Zoom, as long as you're hearing this and Zoom is working, Zoom is obviously a great platform, as is Google Hangouts, whatever, Skype, etc., etc. There are means where we can, and of course, a good old-fashioned telephone works pretty damn well as well. But there are means by which we can maintain connections. But in a job hunting perspective, well, that's the next box. In a job hunting environment, we need to think about maintaining and building and growing those connections that are specific to our job hunt. So that may be keeping in touch with recruiters. It may be in coming up with a process, an operational process to keep in touch with your LinkedIn network or any other network, professional network that you're a part of, to ensure that you are talking to people about your job hunt and you are hearing shared experiences. You are talking to people who are trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve or are trying to help you achieve it, and doing it on a regular basis. And the single most important thing is to diarize this, operationalize it, put it into your calendar. Give yourself half an hour a day when you identify 3 or 4 recruiters you're going to talk to, or half an hour a day when you're going to go through your network connections on LinkedIn. You're going to see who's made comments. You're going to comment back. You're going to put a comment up yourself. It doesn't have to be mind-shatteringly brilliant. It doesn't have to be thought leadership. LinkedIn, you'll notice there is more and more going into LinkedIn that is just human, because people are using LinkedIn as a human connection tool. Very important, but diarize it. Diarize it. Really important. Operationalize it. Make it a part of your daily job hunting. And I Got Hired, obviously, we talk about the importance of setting rules for yourself, setting timelines for the way that you're going to work. This connection piece is part of that. Perspective. I struggled with this whole perspective thing. I felt it was a little bit, particularly when it came to being unemployed, needing to pay mortgage, feed my kids, whatever. Someone telling me to put it into perspective. You could die tomorrow. That just didn't help for me. I needed to keep motivated. I needed to know that my activities were important and that I was going to be driven to do them, and I was going to maintain my focus and my commitment and my belief in my plan and my belief in my process. If I'd gone, well, if I put this into perspective, I guess it's not that important. For me, that was fluffy and it would have faded away. But if you are in a place where focusing on putting your current circumstances employment-wise into a perspective that helps you, then by all means do it. I just wanted to be honest about what did and didn't work for me. I think the personal view, maintaining a positive personal view of yourself is so important. It's a little bit fluffy for a guy coming out of contract and permanent recruitment for 20 or 30 years, that self-image piece. But it is so important. We all have things that we're not delighted with about ourselves, and we can allow ourselves to focus on those. We can allow ourselves to see things that we think everyone else sees. So for me, it's the fact that the light's shining off the top of my bald head and my right ear is sticking out almost wider than my microphone. I've always had a thing. I went bald early and I was born with really big sticky out ears. And if I focus on those, if I allow myself to think about those on a negative basis before I make one of these coaching sessions, I'd never turn the camera on. It's also around who you surround yourself with. We all know those guys who can just suck the belief out of us. They're good friends in many other ways, but they kind of make themselves tall by cutting our legs off. They like to empower themselves by addressing our weaknesses and our failings. So be really conscious about who you are surrounding yourself with, who you are listening to, who you are having important conversations with, and do everything you can to maintain that positive personal view of self, right down to clothing. We all have clothes that we think we look good in, and those we know, in our opinion, we don't look good in. So don't wear them. I've broken that rule a little bit. If I was to scan the camera down, would see that the buttons towards the bottom of this shirt are a little bit tight because I put a bit of weight on. But it was too late to change before the video started. But that's breaking my own rules. I should wear a shirt that I'm more comfortable on, and I don't think of bursting at the seams because I'm putting weight on. That's a personal thing. I could have done better with that. So that's important. Just reinforce the strengths. Identify what you know you're good at, and remind yourself of just how good you are. Remind yourself of your past successes. Really important, particularly when you've had a rough trot of things, 2 or 3 rejections of CVs on the trot, an interview that you've had feedback on, it wasn't positive. Just remind yourself how good you are, why you have been employed in the past, why people have promoted you in the past, or why you've had opportunities in the past. Keep reminding yourself about what you're good at. Have conversations with people about how they see your strengths. Don't ask them for a view of your weaknesses. Ask them for how they see your strengths. What do they see as the fundamental transferable skills that you can apply to your job hunt? Get that positive feedback from people, and always remember you have a role to play too in that positive feedback to others. Accepting your circumstances is just so key. I have been close to someone who recently lost their job, And it took a while for them to accept where they were. And I just don't blame them for that. The process was poorly handled, and it seemed on the surface unfair. And nearly every redundancy is unfair. It's not a personal thing. It is a corporate restructuring thing. So it's almost invariably going to be unfair. So acceptance of where you are, acceptance of the circumstances and the activities around you that you had no control of is really important, and build from a position of reality, not trying to build from a position of an unreal expectation of the future. Accept where you are, accept it's happened, and move forward from that place. Control. This is really important. It's just control what you can control. Don't try to control those things that you are unable to control. The classic example at the moment is the internet is absolutely full. LinkedIn is absolutely full of disgruntled candidates complaining about the fact that they have not had a response to a CV, or they've not had a response after an interview. And that is unforgivable, absolutely unforgivable, but you can't control it. So why allow it to gnaw at you? If you cannot control something, and you certainly can't control someone choosing or not choosing to feed back after an interview or on your CV, excuse me, set yourself a simple framework and say, right, when I make an application, I know what date I applied. I will give the employer, the hiring company, 14 days to respond to my CV. And if they haven't responded to my CV in 14 days, I'm going to work on the basis they're not coming back. And both in terms of my own processes and my own mind, I'm going to write that opportunity off. I can't control when they're going to come back. You can influence it, and that's something we will talk about at great length, those parts of the process that you cannot control, but you can influence, and how you control them, how you influence them. But where you cannot control them, put a framework in place. If they haven't come back after 14 days, psychologically, subconsciously or consciously, move on, let that role go. And then if you do get something back, it's a positive. But focusing, and not even just focusing on, but understanding what it is you can control and what you can't control takes a massive weight off your shoulders. When you are battling to control something that is outside of your control, you set yourself up to fail, and the pressure is immense. Change is a good thing. Change is a good thing. Look at your children. Look at what you've done to your home when you cleaned your car. Change is always a good thing. It's where you take that change. So embrace change. Don't push against it, because you're not going to be able to control it. It's one of those things you can't control. Embrace change. See it as a positive. And I don't want to get into the one about the hope thing, where it is look forward and believe that you can have a hopeful outlook. Yes, of course, we all want a hopeful outlook. We all want to be optimistic. We all want to be positive. But it's a little bit fluffy. If you are lying awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, being told to be hopeful and optimistic is not going to help. What will help, however, is maybe setting some goals, so you can achieve by micro step, by process step, as you go through your job hunt. You're not limited to the binary, I've got a job, I haven't got a job. If you set process targets, number of CVs you're going to get out, number of opportunities you're going to identify, number of recruiters you're going to engage with, number of job boards you're going to set a profile up with, whatever it is, set those goals and measure them, and allow yourself to feel a degree of achievement by fulfilling those goals, because the binary goal will never be achieved unless you do all these other things. So why not recognize their importance, measure them, and then move forward? So goals are incredibly important. I often find when I do wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I tend to go through my goals, and I go through my achievements against those goals, and it helps me go back to sleep. I'm not going to get into sleeping problems on this session, because that could go on for some time. I'll probably put you all to sleep. One of the things when I was talking to doctors about the mental well-being and protecting your mental health, that came out consistently was this issue about detail and decisioning. So as we begin to feel stressed, we begin to recede into the detail. So we may spend days polishing and polishing a resume. We may spend a whole afternoon working on the first phrase of our solution statement at the top of our CV, because the longer we work in the detail, the longer we are doing something that we think is constructive, it's adding value to our job hunt. But the longer we do that, the further we are away from actually having to let someone else see it, having to send it off and have the possibility of failure. That fear of failure can engulf everything you do in your job hunt if you let it. You have to stay in the decisioning stage. You have to be able to do those courageous things, make decisions. Don't allow yourself to recede and just get involved in the detail. Make the difficult phone call. Allow yourself to fail. It is so important that you just allow yourself to fail, because we said, and I got hired all the time, the one phone call that will always fail is the phone call that you don't make. The one CV submission that will always fail is the one that you don't make. Give yourself a chance, back yourself, believe in yourself, and take those decisions to step forward. Don't allow yourself to recede backwards. I'm going to come to documentation last, because that's really important. But linked to the goals, obviously, is measurement. So you set your goals, you have those hopefully in IGH Pro or another system, or an Excel spreadsheet or a bit of paper or your fridge door. Personally, I prefer to use IGH Pro, but do what is right for you. You have your goals, then measure yourself on a regular basis. I would say weekly. Measure yourself weekly and work out. Don't just accept that you have failed to hit a goal. Work out why you have failed to hit that goal. Is the goal unreasonable? In which case you need to adjust it. Or is there a reason? Have you not done the hard yards this particular week? Or was there an event in your family that distracted you? Or did you have problems with your laptop? Or did the internet go down? Or whatever it was, understand why you have failed to hit a goal and be kind to yourself. This is something that you hear a lot. And I started off thinking it was a bit fluffy and a bit odd. Be kind to yourself, but it's so important. Cut yourself some slack. Don't allow yourself failure without some kind of an audit, without understanding why you failed, because you're bound to fail again. But allow yourself to fail and move on and succeed the next time. Don't allow the failure of a goal or the failure of an interview or the failure of a submission to predict the failure of the next event. And that happens so often. I see it with candidates so often. They have a bad interview and they focus so much on what they did wrong that they repeat it when they go into the next interview. And there is this almost self-fulfilling prophecy that if you have made a bad application or you have conducted a bad interview, that you're going to do it again if you focus on the failure. Make sure that you look at what has happened, how you can improve, and then focus on the improvement. Take care of yourself. We'll talk about this in the next model we're going to go through. But I've seen people, as a job hunt elongates, if they don't get the results that they were hoping for quickly, and they'll come on a coaching call with me, or in the old days when I was allowed to meet them, I'd go and meet them. And someone who was really well presented and well prepared for a session, slowly you see that presentation, the preparation begin to fade. It's as if they lose faith in those things that they know historically have been really important, and they let them slip. Don't allow that to happen. Maintain care of yourself, look after yourself physically, and take the care around presentation. If you're not growing a beard, shave. If you usually wear makeup, wear makeup. If you have a certain dress style, don't slip back. We've seen it in the new Zoom world. People that I work with, people who are clients of mine, who have always been smart and well prepared, suddenly turning up on Zoom half shaven in a hoodie, ill prepared, as if it's not real. Everything we're doing, and particularly at this time, everything we are doing in this lockdown, in this difficult economy, everything is real. Everything matters, and we have to keep the focus. We talk about differentiation is in the detail, and that is the detail of everything. And it's also in that detail of care. It's detail in your documentation. It's detail in your communication, detail in your presentation. So maintain that care. The last of the boxes is document. And this isn't about collateral. This is about actually writing down your fears and your aspirations. Don't just let them grow in your head. I've had a sleeping problem for, I guess, about 40 years. I think that's why my hair fell out. But I've had this sleeping problem for 40 years. And I know for a fact that if I have something in my life that is worrying and is likely to keep me awake, if I write it down, half an hour before I go to bed, I write the problem down, maybe a couple of alternatives around solutions or what I'm going to do about it, identifying what I can control, what I can't control, I'm much more likely to sleep. I think that having that documented view of your aspirations, whether you do it as a SWOT analysis and you look at the threats and your weaknesses as well as the opportunities and your strengths, or just sit down and write. I'm not talking about creating a novel of depression, but get it out into the open, read it back to yourself. Does it make sense? Does it represent how you feel? What was your gut response to that interview being cancelled, if it was cancelled? What was your gut response to having an offer withdrawn? And how can that response be positive? How could it have been positive? Could it be more positive? Are you going to learn something from it? So I personally find that documenting those kind of issues is really, really important for me. Other people might think that it is the start of a downward spiral. Again, all of this is from personal experience, and you will all find your own way to build resilience into your job hunt if you look for that way. Okay. Again, a lot of you will be sick of the sound of this, but knowing something and doing something are two completely different things. So knowing you should be positive about building this framework is one thing. Building it is another. Putting the time aside to think about it, talk to positive people, talk to people you trust, talk to people who it might impact. Really, really important. So just for the last few minutes of this session, I just want to talk through what we call the 5E model. This is about protecting your mental health and therefore your ability to be resilient during your job hunt. And we start with the simple viewpoint, the simple statement that nothing happens by accident. It's not going to fall into your lap. Your mental health, any more than if you don't clean your teeth, your gums are going to get messed up. Your gums will not survive because you want them to, or because you think you're tough, or because you think they don't matter. They survive because you clean your teeth twice a day. Equally, you have to engage with your mental health, and you have to put effort in, and you have to plan the framework that is going to ensure that you maintain a positive outlook and a positive mental health, which in turn will have a massive effect on your ability to cope with the slings and arrows that you're going to get potentially in your job hunt. So first of all, we have this bedrock of effort and understanding that we have to do something deliberately. Doesn't happen by accident. We do something by design, not allow it to happen by accident. And the first thing that we're going to focus on is an endeavor. And this is something that you do that adds a skill set. So an endeavor could be learning the guitar, learning the recorder, the harmonica, a foreign language, calligraphy. Someone close to me at the moment is learning calligraphy. It could be, gosh, any skill set. It could be doing better videos than this for a start. So maybe my endeavor should be to go in and get these videos better. But it is something that is related to some kind of a skill that whilst you are doing it, your mind needs to focus on it. You can't, I cannot learn to play guitar unless I am thinking about the 6 strings that I'm desperately trying to make sound better than I can. I need, if I'm trying to teach myself to touch type. God, I'm this old and I don't know how to touch type. I should have done it years and years ago. I probably said I was going to do it every year for the last 30 years. But while I am trying to develop my typing skills, I need to be in the moment. I need to be focused on that. And for that short period of time, the rest of the stuff that is milling around in my head there's no space for it. I have to focus on what I'm doing. So endeavor is important. Do something that really requires your focus. Exercise is everyone knows this, and it's not genius, but your mental health is so closely related to your physical health. And I don't mean going to the gym or running 5K or cycling 20 miles. All I'm talking about here is getting your heart rate up. And there are lots of ways. Get your heart rate up for 20 minutes. We all know ways to do that. And some of them are more pleasurable than others, but find the exercise routine, the discipline that you enjoy. Go for a walk. We're still allowed to do that in lockdown. We're allowed to exercise. That's how important it is that we're being allowed to do it. So again, it doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. It happens by having a time in your day. The very least, personal coaches, etc., will tell us is that you need to get your heart rate up for over 20 minutes 3 times a week. You should be looking, in my opinion, to do it every day, because it's easier to bed something in to a daily timetable than an occasional timetable. Certainly that's how I work. I work much better. My personal exercise is cycling. Until I dislocated my collarbone, it had been quite a big part of my life, certainly through the original lockdown, and it was a pleasure. Got my heart rate up. It also helped me with the next stage, which is escape as well. So cycling for me was exercise and an escape. The difference between an escape and an endeavor is an escape is something that needs less focus. It's just a place you can go and do something nice, something that doesn't really matter. You can't necessarily be judged on. It could be something as simple as doing jigsaws or making airfix models or gardening or talking to your kids. There's no better escape. There's no better way of understanding what is important to you than actually engaging your children and talking to them, listening to them, not talking at them, which is my problem. Certainly my elder sons would tell me that I talked too much at them and didn't listen enough. Hopefully I've learned over time. We've got a 5-year-old now and I do a lot of listening to him, and it's amusing and it's fun. So that escape is important, but it's very different. Escaping and endeavor is very different. Endeavor is something that you build pride in. It's a skill set that you're going to add to your broader capabilities. It's something that you can boast about. It's something you can be proud of yourself about. Escape is just exactly that. Get out of the pressure. Don't run a job hunt for 8 hours a day. Don't run a job hunt. I know who never allowed to leave their mind, and the caliber of their work decreases over time. Allow yourself some time off, allow yourself an escape, and find a way to do it. But with all of these things, we actually have to positively engage. We have to go, yeah, that is what I am doing now. That is what I am going to do tomorrow, and engage with your mental health. I hope that doesn't sound as much as a cliche at your end as it did come out of my mouth, it's a little bit like be kind to yourself thing. It's so important, engaging with your mental health, understanding, first of all, that you have mental health and it can be fragile. And that is not a sign of weakness or anything else. It is just there. I mean, I used gums as an example later. My teeth are terrible. I had half of them knocked out during a very average rugby career, and the rest I've allowed to rot in my mouth. So I have real problems. I'm talking from a poor position of strength when it comes to that. But be aware your mental health exists. Look for the signs. Look for those signs that if you're, obviously sleep is an inevitable issue. If you're struggling to sleep, but if you're becoming slightly more irritable, particularly with those closest to you, that children, partner, that is an issue. A lot of us now have Fitbits and other fitness trackers. Check out your resting heartbeat. Have a look and see if it's increasing, if the average is increasing. That's a real sign of stress. Also have a look and see if there are times in your day when your resting heartbeat increases, and try to analyze and look and see what that is. But take your mental health seriously, because if you don't have strong mental health, you're really going to struggle with your, let me see if I can just get that back up to there. You're really going to struggle with your job hunt. So this is really, really important. And it's not, this session is not exclusively about resilience and mental well-being independent of your job hunt. It's about integrating it with your job hunt, making these practices a part of your job hunt planning, a part of your job hunt process. This has been about 35 minutes now, so it's been longer than I intended. That's because I really think this is important. I really care about this. We'll be putting more stuff up over the next 2 or 3 days about resilience and some plans and tests and exercises. I think to be a successful job hunter over the next few weeks in the UK, you're going to have to ensure that you are able to bounce back from disappointments, because the likelihood is the majority of us are going to experience that. And we need to bounce back, and we need to be strong, and we need to make sure that we know where we are on a spectrum of our mental health, on a spectrum of our resilience, and what our abilities are, and what is the impact if we begin to feel a bit battered by the process. I hope this has been completely and utterly irrelevant. I hope that all of you fly through your job hunt over the next 4 to 5 weeks, and by the time we get to Christmas, everyone is sorted. I just suspect that isn't going to be the case for all of us. So build that resilience in, be aware of your mental health, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another session, same time at 4 o'clock, and I'll be putting out the agenda first thing tomorrow morning. I look forward to seeing you then. And thanks very much for giving me your time this afternoon. Cheers.